lobby. Let's all go to the lobby, lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to Now Slaying, an It Slays podcast production where we break down the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I'm your not-so-humble host, Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And today on the show, we're going to be reviewing the new David Cronenberg movie, Crimes of the Future, which was released today, June 3rd, 2022, exclusively in theaters. But before we get into the meat of the discussion, Rowan, I wanted to ask if you happen to have seen the original Crimes of the Future from 1970, and if not, what have you seen by Cronenberg? Would you consider yourself a fan of his?
I consider myself a fan, although I have not seen the original one. I thought about seeking it out, but then I had read that like this really had nothing to do with the original one, and
yeah, I think he just really liked the title from what I read.
I mean, it is a pretty badass title, so I'll give him that. But yeah, I'd say I'm a fairly large Cronenberg fan. I mean, Videodrome, I don't know if it would be in, like, the top 10, but it's definitely, you know, maybe top 20 films. Like, it's up there for me as an all-time, like, The Fly. I mean, who's not a fan of The Fly? Probably, and I feel like this might be controversial, one of my favorite films by him is Cosmopolis. I've been a fan of that ever since it came out.
I actually still haven't seen that, despite it starring Robert Pattinson. You know, I probably would like it, but yeah, it's just, and it's on the radar. I just haven't got around to it.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, it's one of those films that it's very bizarre. It's, you know, it's like a one location type film. So it's just like a guy in a limo and you never leave that limo.
Oh, okay. I never even knew that about it.
Yeah, and like very odd, I think, for like Cronenberg, just because it's like, it's not really like, there's no body horror or anything. It's like a talking movie. It's just people having conversations in a limo. And then also, I think like the last thing I saw from him, which was the Maps of the Stars or Map of the Stars or whatever, which I was also a big fan of. I really enjoyed that.
Okay, so you like his stuff that's not even like the body horror then. You just like Cronenberg then.
Yeah,
seems like
Cronenberg in general, like Eastern Promises, I love. Like I'm just a fan in general, but I mean the master of body horror, how can you not love him? What about you?
Yeah, I'm very similar to yourself. I love Videodrome. I think that's an excellent movie, and I also think The Fly is excellent as well. Like both of those in my head are like 9 out of 10 movies, so those are very good. And then yeah, I mean, I saw A History of Violence when it first came out, like on DVD or whatever, and I was shocked with how gory it was. I remember that one scene where Viggo Mortensen's hitting the guy in the bridge of the nose, and it like pushes the bone in your nose up into the brain and instantly kills somebody. And then there was also Eastern Promises, which I watched with my mom a few years ago, just thinking it was a regular like gangster movie. I didn't know at the time it was Cronenberg. So I had some nice surprises during that. I think the only thing I've seen by him that I wasn't a big fan of was The Brood.
Yeah, I've never seen that one.
Yeah, I picked that a couple of years ago for like my weekly horror movie with a couple of my friends. And yeah, none of us were a big fan of that one. It was just a little slow. It does have some good body horror near the end of it, but it was kind of like an outlier in his filmography. I'd say I'm a fan of pretty much everything else I've seen. So yeah, I mean, I also haven't seen the original Crimes of the Future. Like I said, I learned of it because I saw some articles about how he reused the title. But when it was coming for this movie's release, it was just sort of the Cannes reaction got me a little bit more excited to it. I didn't watch any trailers or anything. I saw some, you know, screen caps of weird tentacle-y looking things or some weird effects. But it was more so like the walkouts at Cannes, the booing at Cannes, and then also a standing ovation at Cannes, like showing that it was a pretty good
standing ovation.
I feel like over in France, they just love to stand for every movie, though. It's like every other year you hear about a 20-minute standing ovation or something, right? And I've been to TIFF, you know, 5 years now, like in person, and I don't know if I've ever seen a standing ovation longer than like 2 minutes, you know? That's just a thing they do over there, I think. I was looking forward to this thing a little bit. How about you? Are you looking forward to Crimes of the Future?
So I was pretty excited. I mean, obviously, you know, it's I don't have like a chronological filmography in front of me, but it's been a while. We haven't heard from Cronenberg. I mean, I haven't watched anything since Maps of the Stars. So yeah, it's definitely, I'm just excited to get new Cronenberg. You kind of are going in expecting some body horror. Unlike you, like I had seen the trailer and I was like, oh yeah, like this looks like it's gonna be weird. Just super pumped. And I'll briefly mention this because I will be bringing this up when we talk about it. I haven't read it yet, but in my to read pile, I have David Cronenberg, like he wrote a book, like a horror book called Consumed.
Oh, okay.
And it's like in my to read pile, and that's slowly coming up there soon that I will be reading it. So he's been in my mind. Yeah, so that's kind of my anticipation for it.
For sure. So I think that's probably a good enough opening preamble there. Let's kick it over to the trailer and then get into the review discussion of Crimes of the Future.
A new world opens up. You filled me with the desire to cut my face open. Surgery is the new sex.
We have to go deep.
Guide us into the heart of darkness. Have we just been made obsolete?
Maybe.
What you just heard is from Crimes of the Future, written and directed by David Cronenberg, and the story is as follows. In the near future, as humans continue to adapt to their increasingly synthetic environments, their bodies undergo severe transformations. With his partner Caprice, celebrity performance artist Saul Tenser publicly showcases the rejection of his new organs in avant-garde performances. But as Saul's notoriety grows, a mysterious group soon reveals themselves, hoping to normalize the next phase of human evolution. Now, here on Now Slaying, we like to try and keep things relatively spoiler-free at first before making it very obvious when we move into the spoiler-filled discussion. With that being said, I also don't think this is really a movie that's easily spoiled. But regardless, Rowan, what are your spoiler-free thoughts on Crimes of the Future?
I mean, I think it's probably pretty safe to say in the spoiler-free section that this is definitely not going to be for everybody. It's a pretty high concept film. I like when filmmakers don't dumb things down for a general audience, which, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for this film, where he goes in the complete opposite. I think don't believe the hype. I mean, I think just like you, the big things with this was all the articles about the walkouts and oh my god, people are just puking all over themselves. And this is the Hostel effect. And yeah, I wouldn't be scared of it from that. Like, it's a relatively tame movie. But I mean, I think it definitely deals with some interesting themes. The score is fantastic. I went and saw this with Exilia, and we both came out being like, the score was awesome. Especially like the whole intro was really well done. And I don't know if anything has ever been shot so bleakly. It's been a while since I've seen something shot so just gray-scaled, bleak.
Just very dark, yeah. It almost seemed like my projector was broken to some degree in my theater almost. It was so dim.
Yeah, I was definitely getting other Mortison film, The Road, getting those vibes.
Yeah.
But, I mean, yeah, like you said, I mean, this isn't, I feel like it's kind of hard to spoil, especially, like, if you have only seen the trailer, you kind of get the gists of what you're getting. Cronenberg, his name itself kind of tells you what you're gonna be walking into. What are your kind of, like, spoiler-free thoughts on it?
Yeah, it certainly wasn't what I was expecting either. Once again, you go into these things, you hear about the buckets of gore and people walking out and whatnot, and I don't know about your theater, but I did have a lot of walkouts in my theater.
Oh,
like,
really?
I probably had about, but I think it was due to boredom. I don't think it was due to gore or anything.
Yeah.
Like, I had probably about 20 people in my theater, and when it was finished, it was me and 3 teenage girls that before the movie they were just so excited to see Kirsten Stewart. So, you know, it's they were sticking around to see if she was going to get more than 5 or 10 minutes of screen time, and that is the spoiler. I will say she does not. So she's not in the movie very much. Don't go to see it for Kirsten Stewart. But yeah, basically probably my spoiler free thoughts are just that I think the biggest crime this movie commits is just how boring it is to me. I'm sorry, I do get what people are saying where like there are bigger themes, but to me a lot of it just still felt pretty half-baked. And as we've kind of already alluded to, a lot of the body horror and gore in it's not really anything we haven't seen before, and certainly not enough in my opinion to prompt walkouts, right? Like we discussed Alex Garland's Men a couple weeks ago on this same show, and I think that has far more effective sequences of body horror and certainly has images that I'll remember far longer than I think anything in this movie. Like it's only been 5 or 6 hours since I finished seeing this, and already I'm kind of forgetting a lot of it, and by tomorrow I feel like it'll almost feel like a, you know, like a distant memory when I saw Crimes of the Future. So yeah, it's to me it's not necessarily like a bad movie. It was just like I was very underwhelmed, I would say. Like the fact that even you're pointing out the score is like, geez, I can't even remember it at all. So I do believe you, because you and Exilia and even Mike are far more tuned into the scores of movies. Like I usually only notice the score if it's like really in your face, really bombastic, or very like synth wavy, you know, so it's loud.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is, I don't know. I have more to say, I guess, somewhat in the spoiler discussion, but yeah, like, yes, I don't know. I'm very conflicted on this. It's, you know, we usually do we recommend it? Do we not recommend it? For me, I probably wouldn't recommend it personally. Just like if I was going to tell my friends, like, should you go see it? I'd say like, nah, like watch it when it's on Netflix or whatever. Like you don't have to go to the theater to see this. Obviously, if you're listening to our episode on Crimes of the Future, you're probably a Cronenberg fan. You're probably gonna go see it either, but I don't know if I'd recommend it. I was pretty bored. Would you recommend it, Rowan? Where do you fall on that?
I'm pretty much in the same boat. Like I don't think I would recommend, you know, unless you're like us and, you know, you're like, I knew Cronenberg, I gotta see it in the theater, which, like, I get, like, I do support, you know, I think someone as important as Cronenberg, like, it is important to go to the theater and support people like that doing films. But I think for, like, a general audience that, you know, someone I know that's just kind of in the, you know, they just got, the last movie they saw was like Doctor Strange or something, and, you know, they only go to the theater for Marvel movies. Like, they're probably walking out of this because, like you said, of boredom. Like, it's not holding anyone's attention unless you're going in willing to sit there and kind of deal with how much of a slog this movie is.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect word to use, slog, to some degree. But yeah, I think this is probably the time when we should move into the spoiler-filled discussion just a little bit. I didn't watch the trailer. I don't know about how much of the specifics of Viggo Mortensen's character is revealed in the trailer, and that's kind of like what I'd like to discuss a little bit in terms of some of the symbolism or the metaphors that he was trying to get at there about like art and exhibition and how that intersects with like sex and whatnot. So yeah, if you don't want kind of the broader thematic strokes of the movie, or, you know, some of the small moments spoiled, then yeah, probably dip out of the podcast now, because from this point on it's no holds barred. But yeah, like, once again, this isn't a movie with a huge twist or anything. I assume if you've seen the trailer, you probably have seen a lot of what it has to offer, I would assume, you know, based off what you said. Yeah, so I guess we'll just probably start the spoiler-free thoughts off with the spoiler-filled thoughts off with, just Viggo Mortensen's character. I thought the performance was pretty interesting, but I didn't know if he was supposed to be a human that was plagued by pain the entire movie, or if he was a human that was looking for pain. It was like a fundamental misunderstanding for me with like what the orchid bed was doing, because in this movie, it's like very weird machinery and very weird like synthetic machines. Like they have the orchid bed that it lays in, and from what I read online, it's supposed to alleviate your pain and allow for like this perfect sleep. But then you have the thing like the breakfaster, which, I don't know, it's almost like a spinal column wiggling you around to trying to digest things appropriately, and it's very strange. So I was a little bit confused with his character. Yeah, I know. I was watching it and I was just like, I don't know how we digest. but it doesn't look like we digest with whatever this thing is doing. It's very strange.
The equipment I had said to Exilia when we were watching, like, the equipment really was giving me Naked Lunch vibes, like the film.
Yeah, so I haven't seen Naked Lunch, so I can't comment on that, but I mean, same director, right?
Yeah, so it really seemed to be influenced, like, by that look. Just kind of this, like, alien, but almost insect type, like, feel, like, slimy. Which, I mean, I feel like I'm describing just every Cronenberg movie, but
yeah, fair.
Yeah, that just gave me Naked Lunch vibes.
I kind of deviated a little bit there just to talk about the equipment, but did like the movie's theme of basically what Viggo Mortensen's character was all about. Like, he's an artist at his core, but his art is growing his art inside of him, and then cutting it out and presenting it to the world for kind of like them to critique and for them to love. It's very much like, as an artist, that's what like Cronenberg does. That's what any artist does, right? You gestate something inside you put it out on the screen, or you type it up, or you paint it, and then once it's out of you, it's for the rest of the world to enjoy. Like, I got that within about 5 minutes of the movie, and I don't know if like the movie ever had anything more to say about that. I don't know if it resonated more deeply with you, but I was like, dude, yeah, I got what you're saying, and I was just kind of wondering where it was going.
I was pretty much the same. I think, to me, I took away the two main themes of this movie being art, and like whenever, you complete a piece of art, like a piece of you is taken from the public's taking a piece of you. And then obviously there's also this strong theme of kind of environmentalism and the consumption of plastic is such a big thing in this. And I mean, my real issue with it was the art thing is a pretty simple concept. Like, it's 100%. Not it's something that's been overused over and over again, and I don't think it was used interestingly enough to like warrant like a 2-hour movie.
100% agreed. At least not in this way, at least, yeah.
And then to me, the environmentalism part of it, which, no puns intended, to me was easier to digest.
Nice.
was, another cooking pun. It was undercooked.
Yeah.
They just kind of were like, this is a theme, here you go, but we're really only gonna like hit that theme for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's the type of thing where they open the movie on that with the kid and his mother telling him not to eat anything out of the ocean. I was like, what are you going on with? What a weird ass mom. And then I was like, oh, okay, he's eating plastic's in the ocean. And then she smothers him, which is probably one of the better scenes in the movie, that kind of little opening of the 4 or 5 minutes there. But then it kind of just lays dormant for probably an hour 15 minutes until like the father kind of explicitly states that he's making food out of bars that is like made from our own like toxic wastes and plastics. Basically, we're consuming what we put into the planet to kind of get rid of it, and that humans are evolving to be able to consume these plastics and whatnot. And I was just kind of like, okay, but why wasn't this the theme of the whole movie? Like, why? Like, it's basically what you said. It's 5 minutes in the beginning, and then it's kind of sprinkled in 5-6 minutes over the course of probably the last half hour. It's brought up every now and then, but it's not like the driving force or anything, right?
I just felt like both themes I don't think they were explored as well as they could have been. They they were just kind of there. There was no real thought in it. I think what's interesting with the themes is like, I did like try to read a little bit of like about the production and that stuff. And fun fact, it seems like none of the actors knew what the fuck this movie was about. They all were like, I read it, I didn't really understand it. Cronenberg liked that we didn't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get that, because a lot of it does just kind of seem almost like a tone piece or a mood piece. Like I said, I don't even know the specificity of like Viggo Mortensen's character until I read after the fact. Like, I didn't know if he wanted to always be in pain, like sadomasochistic or whatever, like wanting pain, or if it was just a part of his life and he like learned to live with it, or if he was trying to alleviate pain. I was just literally that little detail I was confused of for a lot of the movie, because obviously in this movie a big theme is that surgery is the new sex. So obviously It's kind of like riding the line between like pleasure and pain, right?
Yeah.
Right in the, too far one way, it's pain, and too far the other way, it's pleasure, right? So there's a lot of like scenes in this movie that are kind of like sexual as they're like kind of cutting into each other and whatnot. So I was like, okay, maybe he is in the pain. I'm not 100% sure. Like, it was just wasn't 100% clear on that regard to me. So like, yeah, I can understand the actors being confused themselves, right?
I was gonna say, just where you touched on it earlier, like, I kind of felt the same with the opening scene. So like the opening scene, she kills the kid, and I thought it was pretty impactful because, I mean, we're only like a couple minutes in, and I'm like, okay.
Yes, yeah.
Like, I'm like, this is what we're getting in the first like 3 minutes. I'm like, so I'm ready. I'm like sitting in my seat. I'm like, all right, we're doing that off the top. Like, we're gonna get crazy in this. Like, where is he I'm ready to walk out of the theater and puke all over myself. And then, like you said, like, that's probably the most shocking thing that happens in the entire movie. Like, the rest is just kind of, it's whatever. I felt like a lot of the incision, the stuff like that, it didn't look great.
No, so it was CGI, right? It was like bad visual effects, just like fake cutting with scalpels. So that's the thing. It's like a lot of the gore in the movie later on is almost like medical gore to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Or at least it's kind of similar, right? Like when you cut someone with a scalpel, it's a very like clean incision. Like it doesn't bleed a whole lot because like that's kind of the point of it. So it just looked very strange. Anyways, like it wasn't horrific. As someone who was pursuing medicine for a time in my life, like I saw surgeries performed. I have held organs. I have seen that. So like to see this movie and to just be like, okay, is that it? Like, is that what people were walking out at because they cut someone open and you could see an organ inside? It's like, yeah, like technically it is gory, but it almost felt like medical to me to a certain degree, right?
And like I said, when I come into a Cronenberg movie, I can't think of anyone else that is more hand in hand with like practical effects than Cronenberg.
Yeah.
So to me, it was just odd. Like I was just like, this weird, like everything is like CGI, and I was just like, it doesn't look great.
Mm-hmm.
As someone that did watch the trailer, you saw half of the stuff in the trailer. Like, you saw the guy with his, like, eyes and mouth sewn shut and ears on him.
Ears all over him, yeah.
Like, so you kind of, you kind of saw most of the shocking stuff. I kind of assumed, I know when we got out of the movie and we were kind of trying to figure out, like, oh, why was everyone walking out of this movie? And I mean, I'm gonna think that it must have been maybe like the autopsy on the boy's body. There is a lot of there's a lot of like 8-year-old boy penis showing in this.
Yeah, so go ahead. I don't want to cut you off when you're discussing that.
I was going to say, it didn't, in Cronenberg's defense, it wasn't shot, to me it wasn't shot, like, exploitatively. Like, I wasn't disgusted because you were seeing this boy's body. I thought he did a pretty good job at, like, tastefully doing it. Plus, let's be upfront, like, the minute they close up on that boy's face, it looks so terrible, like, that it's just like a wax figure.
Yeah, mannequin or whatever, yeah.
Like, you won't think it's the boy because it doesn't even look human. It's so fake. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about it?
Yeah, so the only reason why that scene really rubs me the wrong way is because the movie has been feeding us that surgery is sex for the movie, and it doesn't really differentiate that an autopsy is different than surgery. So when I was watching that scene, like, in the back of my mind, all I could think of was, well, surgery is sex, and we're here, like, cutting this naked little boy open to, like, I don't know, 50 people watching, right? It's just, I don't know, it doesn't, I don't like it. I'm not gonna say it's so far as, like, it's pedophilic or whatever, but it was something like, I don't know, you could have put a little cloth over that section at least, like, I don't know, if the movie wasn't pushing so hard that, surgery is the new sex, maybe it wouldn't have upset me so much. Or if it was more like, if it showed, I guess it does show a couple other naked bodies. I was gonna say if it showed more naked bodies and it was purely about this is just the body, but I guess he does show like 3 or 4 other naked people. But it's not like, I don't know, it's just, yeah, I don't want to see child dong on my movie at all. I'm good without it, basically, no matter what the statement or the circumstances. I'd rather just not see it. guess is what I'm saying.
And this is where I think it really suffers from these two ideas that are just half baked, because when we get the boy autopsy, we're obviously in the storyline of this environmentalism theme, because they're looking at his insides to see about him digesting plastic and what they're gonna find.
Yes.
But like you said, because the storylines are kind of so sloppily played with, you're still kind of also dealing with this sexist surgery theme, even though
Yes.
we're quite clearly like off of that onto the environmentalism now. Yeah, I just don't think it was a great job in making that distinction.
Yeah, I think if this was just the environmentalism movie and you had an autopsy, I think you could have had it just effective without showing, his genitalia. And then if it was purely the sex movie and that was really hammered home, like just bodies and pleasure and like, it doesn't matter what we do with them and all this stuff, like just really weird and abstract, maybe I would have been slightly more okay with it. But like the merging where they're both half-baked ideas, I was like, I don't really feel this is necessary for either one fully, right? Because even when we do open up the boy at the autopsy, Brecken, I think his name is.
Yeah.
It's like we don't actually even get to see what his messed up organs would have been because they're replaced before we ever would have got to see them as well, right? So it's already like, it's not even for us as an audience, like we're seeing something super interesting, I guess, or we're not seeing like what does an evolved insides of a human look like. There was none of that there, right? It was just all replaced. So yeah, it's that scene really sticks out. It's like definitely leaves like a sour taste in my mouth. I'm not a big fan of that.
And there was also like my other issue too is like there's also like this weird like storyline where he's like basically like an undercover cop or like an informant.
Yeah,
so it's like we have this weird like cop criminal story going on that also is like not finished or overly explored. It just seemed to me like a lot of the movie was like a lot of what you're supposed to feel is like these moody scenes, but they're just kind of like strung together in this like loose story.
Yeah, what I have noted here is that it creates numerous narrative threads that we don't ever follow to their necessary conclusion, and they never pay off. So let's say, for example, like he comes back at one point getting a zipper installed in his abdomen.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, it's almost like a fellatio scene where he like undoes the zipper and Leia Sedu's character like sucks him off from the zipper area. But the whole point of the zipper being installed is so when he does a beauty pageant later for like his inner beauty, he can expose it to the world through the zipper rather than doing their surgery machine. That scene's never in the movie. Like that never happens. I was kind of at least thinking like, okay, in the third act, we'll get this really grotesque kind of like monstrous runway scene, Neon Demon, but it's, Cronenberg where everyone looks all fucked up and you're walking the runway, right?
Yeah.
And, he exposes his insides or something. But there's nothing to that. And they bring up the beauty pageant multiple times and it never appears in the movie. So when they were showing the ear guy, I also kind of thought like, okay, we should remember this character. He is a rival of, Saul in the movie. He doesn't like the guy, thinks he's too pretentious and too outlandish. But I was like, he will probably reappear at the beauty pageant scene, right? So I was just literally like, there's a lot of drop narratives. And you mentioned the police narrative. I already forgot that was even a point of the movie. Like, that was even a storyline. So like, yeah, it's very messy. I don't know. That was, were you bummed out that there was no inner beauty pageant or anything like that? Like it was set up a little bit.
I mean, I was just bummed out in general. Like I was expecting to go in and get something, anything that I'd be like even just wince at. And I was like, it just was odd. I was like, we're continuing on. And like I said, there's a lot of Cronenberg that aren't body horror that I enjoy. But I don't know. Like, I think maybe he's just been away from body horror so long that it's hard for him to get back into it. Maybe it's a young man's game or something. Now, I do want to I was going to say, I do want to say, because obviously I had a lot of negative about this. I did really enjoy the two, like, hit women in it.
So, once again, I didn't know they were supposed to be hit women until obviously the one scene with the drill. I don't know, but
yeah, and only one of them's name. One of the characters' name is Burst, but the other one, like, I looked everywhere and it seems that she's just unnamed. I thought they were okay. Like, I was just like, they're kind of like silly, like they're kind of weird. I did like the scene where they like drill the guy in the back of the head. Like, they were just this weird, like, hitmen couple, although I didn't really understand why they were killing people. I mean, most of the story was just me sitting there looking at Exilia saying, I don't think I know what's going on.
Yeah, because didn't they? I thought they worked for the company that what is it called? The corpus or whatever the autopsy machine is called. Because weren't they also like messing around with that, and then they strip and they like sit in it and they talk about, you know, will they be able to be involved in the art display at some point? Right. And it was like stuff like that. Like, okay, by doing that, you're kind of setting up maybe something will happen to Lea Seydoux character. Maybe one of them will have to step in. Maybe Viggo Mortensen will bring other people into his act or something. Once again, none of that happens in the movie. It's kind of just a scene for titillation's sake, which once again, like, yeah, like the scene with Lea Seydoux where she's laying there naked and she's, you know, getting the scalpels done, of course, like it's titillating. That's the point of it, as is that scene with the two women. But I kind of wonder, like, other than sex and showcasing the human body, what is this saying, or like what more does this add really?
So this is where I said I'd bring it back up when I was talking about David Cronenberg and his book Consumed and stuff.
Yeah.
Me and Exilia both said to each other, I think this should have been a book. I was like, I feel like the themes, what he's trying to do, I was like, I feel like this as a book could have probably been better explained, more detail. We could have understood the characters more. And I was like, this is a story that if I read this, I'd probably be interested because you could expand on it more. And I was like, I feel like this just wasn't a visual vehicle. I feel like it should have been a written vehicle.
Yeah, I think I actually do agree with you there. I think that as the written word, like on the page, you'd be able to kind of create a better idea, like vaguely, like what is wrong with these people in terms of like the different incisions they're making or like what's happening on display. Because like what they showed, it just wasn't shocking enough. That's the thing. It's like the only thing in my head that I can even think is a little bit shocking is like when they go to that one party and there's like a woman getting her foot like sawed in the middle of it. And it's kind of like, I don't know, it's using like what I would almost call an ulu, which is like a First Nations like Inuit thing that they use to take the skin off seals or something. Like that's like it looks like, and it's like carving into her bone. But it's like it's shown for a moment, and I understand why someone might squirm a little bit. But like for me, it's just like it looks so fake or whatever. Anyways, right? It's like it was just whatever, right?
I was gonna say what's really fun is when I was reading about it were the casting what ifs of this.
Oh, what were they? Hit me with some.
Yeah, so Viggo Mortensen was the third choice for the main role. So apparently Cronenberg tried to get this off the ground like in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And Nicolas Cage was signed on to the project. He had wanted to work with Cronenberg and apparently couldn't do it. And then when they decided to do it now, he was getting ready to film his newest movie, and he had to drop out, so he couldn't do it. So then the second choice was Ralph Fiennes, which I also like. I
also would have been good. Yeah,
I could kind of see it. Red Dragon. I was like, yeah. And he had to drop out, so then it went to Viggo. And then, what's your name? Lea Seydoux, or however you say it. I'm not good at French.
Yeah, Lea Seydoux, I think.
Yeah, Lea Seydoux. So, apparently signed on also was, for that role was Natalie Portman.
Wow.
Natalie Portman had to drop out because she was doing the new Thor movie. I could see the Natalie Portman move, just because, like, you know, she's kind of been doing some, like, auteur stuff in the background now.
I think I'm kind of fine with any of those casting decisions, actually. I think, for me, I'm starting to have an issue where I feel like I'm seeing the filmmaker in the movies. And, like, I very much felt that Viggo Mortensen was, like, a Cronenberg stand-in just because of the artist and exposing himself and the fascination with the body and sex and all this shit. And obviously that's what Cronenberg deals with throughout basically his whole filmography. But then when I see that, it creates a very awkward situation when Viggo Mortensen's making out with Kirsten Stewart later in the movie. And I don't know, that made me feel like weird as well, just because I understand they're both adults, but I mean, there's probably a 50-year age gap between those two people, like probably pretty close to it at least. So
yeah, and I thought Kirsten Stewart was pretty good in it. Like I thought she was probably one of the better actors in it.
So she was definitely acting. I've seen her in numerous roles. She never acts like this. She's almost like a fanboy, you know, of weird art, and she really wants to be a part of this, and she thinks they're breaking new ground. It's very like rambly, and I do think it at least stands out in my head. I don't know if I'd go so far as say it was good, but like it stands out from the pack. It's not like brooding and serious. So I'm not 100% sure if I'll say it's good, but like I definitely recognized it, and I would have been fine if there was more of her in the movie for sure. But yeah, I don't really have any more notes for this movie. I don't know if we really missed anything, if we want to get into scoring this thing, or
yeah, I'm safe to score. I've said pretty much all I'm gonna say about it for now, Slane.
All right, so if you're new to the podcast, our review rubric is nay, okay, yay, or slay. So Rowan, what would you give Crimes of the Future?
So for now, I'm gonna give it a nay, which is a rarity for me. I'm gonna give it like, you know, a soft nay. I was thinking about an okay. I'm not gonna say I'm never gonna revisit it, because I feel like this could, you know, I don't know now, but this could be one of those kind of movies that in a week I'm still gonna be trying to think about what I watched and like, I gotta see it again, and maybe I'll grow to appreciate it. But right now, I just feel like it's kind of a mess. You know, Cronenberg's getting up there in age, and I'm just wondering if, you know, maybe it's done. Maybe like,
yeah, maybe he's lost it. Yeah,
the prime is gone, and it's been, like I said, it's been a long time. I think it's been what, like 10 plus years since he's made something.
Yeah, you were right. It was Maps to the Stars, and that was, I think it was 2014 when I searched it up when you mentioned it.
Okay,
so,
there we go. So
7-8 years. Right?
Yeah.
Almost a decade.
You know, I think this, you know, this isn't going to be a box office smash for sure. Unlike you, we didn't have any walkouts, but there was still, like, we went and saw it. There was 6 people there, 8 people there. There were like, there was no one there. And I had looked, like, we went to a 7 o'clock showing. There was a 4 o'clock showing, and no one bought tickets to that showing.
Wow.
And I think the late one, when I checked, they had only sold 4 tickets. So, you know, I think this is just going to kind of fade. If you want to watch Cronenberg, watch, like, The Fly or Videodrome or Cosmopolis or any of that stuff. Like, I just think this is probably pretty skippable, and I think it's going to kind of be erased from the general consciousness, like, once it's out of theaters. What did you think? What is your rating on it?
Yeah, I mean, mark this on your calendars, listeners, because Rowan and I are in agreement on a rating, and I'm very much the exact same. I had written down a soft nay. I was thinking about an okay as well, but it was kind of like, the more it sat with me and the more I made notes for the show, I was just kind of like, dude, I really didn't enjoy it. Like, you know, not so far to say it's bad or horrible, but just how confused it was, how bored I was, how it didn't seem to coalesce into saying anything greater about sex or environmentalism or body modification or art, and just, you know, that it was just kind of grasping at straws almost. So yeah, I'm very much in the same boat. It's a nay from me as well, a soft nay, and I don't think it'll be something I'm thinking about for the next week, trying to figure it out. Maybe there'll be a podcast that I listen to that covers it in the near future. Maybe they can, you know, probe something else out of it that, you know, will make me appreciate it more, but for now, it's a soft nay as well. And it's about that time here on the show to, I guess, plug our socials. If you made it this far, hopefully you're following us on our socials. But if you're not, it's at It Slays Podcast. And we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Letterboxd, Slasher. I think that's all of them. But yeah, you can follow us on there at It Slays Podcast. And Rowan, go ahead and plug the playlist.
So if you, you know, like scores and music from horror movies, check us out on Spotify. We have a playlist there. It's called the It Slays Podcast Horrific Playlist. I'm sure I will add a jam or two from this. Like I said, I was a big fan of the score. But yeah, we add music that we like from the films we review, and, you know, also some classic films. So, you know, get your spooky music on any time of the year. It's a good time for spooky music all the time.
Yeah, I know when you add that, I'm going to have to take a listen to it as well, because Yeah, I got to see if I remember it at all. But yeah, I think next time on the show we might be covering Mad God. I'm not sure. I think that's supposed to be coming out to Shudder, and if it looks interesting, maybe we'll give that a go. If not, we'll definitely be covering The Black Phone later in the month, so stick around. We'll have something coming your way. But I think that basically wraps things up for this episode, so until next time, I'm Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And as long as you keep listening, we'll keep slaying.